Please, Mom, just sign here. That's what my daughter said, right before I realized I was being robbed in broad daylight. Not by a stranger, but by my own flesh and blood. Stay with me till the end, because what happened next changed my life forever. Her voice was still as soft and sweet as it used to be when she was a little girl begging me for candy. But now she was 35, and instead of asking for $1, she was trying to take everything I had left. We were sitting in a bank, under the bright white lights that made everything look too sharp, too real. My hand trembled as she slid a pen toward me. Her husband Ryan gripped my arm tightly under the table, a smile on his face for the cameras, but his fingers pressing so hard it felt like my bones might crack. "It's just a small transfer, Mom," my daughter, Lena, whispered. "Just some routine paperwork to help you manage your account better." But I knew she was lying. I had seen the papers. It wasn't a small transfer. It was everything. The last $45,000 I had left, the savings from my late husband's pension, the money that was supposed to keep me safe for the rest of my life. The air conditioner hummed above us, but I could feel sweat dripping down my back. The sound of the cash machines around us blended into a dull roar that matched the pounding of my heart. Lena smiled for the security cameras, pretending to be a caring daughter helping her aging mother. Ryan smiled too, but his grip didn't loosen. "Come on, Evelyn," he murmured into my ear, his breath sour with cigarettes and coffee. "Don't make this harder than it has to be. Think of your granddaughter, Maya. Think of everything we've done for you. Everything they'd done for me." I almost laughed. I was the one who had paid for Lena's college. I was the one who gave them the down payment for their house. I was the one who bailed them out when Ryan lost his job. And now they were here to take the last thing I had, my future. I stared at the document, the black ink waiting like a trap. One signature and I'd be left with nothing. No savings, no security, no freedom. Lena leaned closer, her perfume cloying and heavy. "Mom, you can't handle that kind of money alone." "I'm just trying to protect you," she whispered, her voice dripping with false concern. I looked around desperately. The young teller was busy helping another customer. An older woman waited in line, flipping through a brochure. A man in a suit scrolled through his phone. No one noticed the quiet disaster unfolding right in front of them. A mother being pressured into financial ruin by her own child. Ryan's fingers tightened again, and a small cry escaped my throat. "Shh," he hissed through his teeth, still smiling. "Don't make a scene." That was the moment I saw it, the truth in his eyes. This man wasn't just greedy, he was dangerous. And my daughter, my sweet little girl, was letting him do this. The clock on the wall read 3:12 p.m., just another Tuesday afternoon. For everyone else, it was a normal day. For me, it was the moment my entire world cracked open. I thought about how I had gotten here. It started with a phone call that morning. "Mom, can you come to the bank with us?" Lena had said. "It's important, just some papers to sign." She didn't give me details. She never did. Just commands disguised as requests. I had come, like I always did, out of love, out of habit, out of fear of losing her. But sitting there under those harsh lights, I finally realized love shouldn't feel like this. At that moment, the bank manager, a middle-aged man named Mr. Harris, approached our table. "Is everything all right here?" he asked politely. Ryan's smile widened. "Yes, just helping my mother-in-law with a transfer." Mr. Harris looked at me, and something in his eyes changed. Maybe he noticed my trembling hands. Maybe he saw the bruises on my wrist where Ryan had grabbed me. "Ma'am, are you sure you understand this transaction?" he asked carefully. Lena jumped in. "Of course she does. She just needs a minute to sign." I didn't know where the courage came from. Maybe from my husband watching over me. But I picked up a small notepad from the table, scribbled a few words, and slid it toward Mr. Harris when no one was looking. "Help. I'm being forced." For a second, everything froze. Mr. Harris's polite smile faltered. His eyes widened ever so slightly. Then he nodded slowly and turned away, his hand reaching discreetly under the desk. That's when I knew he understood. He had pressed the silent alarm. For the first time that day, I could breathe again. Someone had seen me. Someone believed me. And I wasn't alone anymore. People think manipulation starts with lies. But it doesn't. It starts with love. The kind that makes you say yes even when your heart whispers no. That's how it started for me. Long before that day at the bank, my name is Evelyn Carter. I'm 69 years old, and all my life I was the woman who couldn't say no. The mother who always gave, who always helped, who always sacrificed. When I look back now, I see the pattern, clear as day. But back then, it just felt like love. A mother's love for her only child. I remember the day my daughter Lena was born. It was a warm spring morning. After 14 exhausting hours of labor, I finally held her in my arms. Tiny, perfect, and with those same green eyes her father, James, used to have. In that moment, I made a silent promise. You will never go without. I'll make sure you always have everything you need, and I kept that promise. Maybe too well. When she was 5, she wanted a pink bicycle with a basket on the front. It cost $250, a small fortune for us at the time. James and I both worked extra shifts to afford it. The look on her face when she saw that bike was pure magic. That moment made every hour of exhaustion worth it. Or so I thought. When Lena turned 15, she wanted to attend a summer art camp that cost over $1,000. I sold my grandmother's jewelry to pay for it. She hugged me and said, "You're the best mom in the world." Those words, they were like a drug. They made me feel loved, needed, important. By the time she finished high school, Lena had learned the power of those words and how to use them. "Mom, all my friends are going to private universities," she said one night, her voice trembling. "I can't go to a state college. What will people think?" Private university tuition was $40,000 a year. We didn't have that kind of money, but I couldn't bear to see her cry. So James and I took out a loan using our house as collateral. I started working double shifts in the hospital cafeteria, scrubbing floors, cleaning tables, serving food late into the night. My feet ached, my back hurt, but every time I thought about quitting, I pictured Lena's smile in her graduation gown. That dream kept me going. 4 years later, she graduated with honors in business administration. I cried tears of pride at her ceremony, believing all our sacrifices had finally paid off. I was wrong. At 25, she met Ryan, the man who would later grab my arm hard enough to bruise it in a crowded bank. He was handsome, charming, and confident. Too confident. From the first moment I met him, I felt something uneasy in my gut. When he shook my hand, he didn't say, "It's nice to meet you." He said, "So, is the house paid off yet?" I should have known then. But love makes you blind, and guilt keeps you silent. When Lena and Ryan decided to get married, they wanted a fairy tale wedding. The venue alone cost $20,000. "Mom, it's once in a lifetime," she said. "I'll never ask for anything again." We took out another loan. James had just been diagnosed with diabetes, but we told ourselves we'd make it work. The wedding was beautiful. Lena looked like a princess. And Ryan smiled all night, though his eyes never quite reached his heart. After their honeymoon, another $5,000, they moved into a small apartment. I thought maybe now, finally, they'd start taking care of themselves. But the call started almost immediately. "Mom, the fridge broke." "Mom, the rent's late." "Mom, Ryan lost his job." Always emergencies. Always urgent. And always, somehow, my problem. Every time I hesitated, Lena would remind me, "Mom, think of Maya. Don't you want her to have a good life?" And just like that, I'd open my wallet again. I told myself it was just temporary. But temporary became routine. Routine became dependency. And dependency became control. James used to tell me, "Evelyn, we're spoiling her." But I'd always defend her. "She's our daughter," I'd say. "We can't just let her struggle." What I didn't see then was that I wasn't helping her. I was teaching her that she could take without giving back. That she could lie and I'd still forgive her. That no matter what she did, Mom would always say yes. When James passed away 3 years ago, everything fell apart. I lost my husband, my partner, and the only person who ever told me it was okay to say no. And that's when Lena and Ryan saw their chance. They came to me with kind words and fake sympathy. "Mom, you shouldn't handle money alone," Lena said. "Let us help you manage your accounts." And like a fool, I trusted her. That's how I ended up sitting in that bank, with Ryan's hand crushing my arm and a pen in my shaking fingers, about to sign away the last of my independence. But what they didn't know was that this time, something in me had changed. One small word. 5 letters that changed everything. Help. That's what I wrote on a scrap of paper, and that single act saved my life. But what came after? I could never have imagined. The air inside the bank felt heavy. My hands were trembling as I held the pen, trying to focus on the paper Lena had placed in front of me. I could feel Ryan's stare on me, cold and sharp as a knife. "Mom, what's taking so long?" Lena asked with a fake laugh, loud enough for the nearby customers to hear. "It's just a formality. Nothing complicated, a formality." That's what she called taking every dollar her father and I had saved over 46 years of marriage. My heart pounded so hard I thought everyone in the room could hear it. I looked up at her, my beautiful little girl. The child who used to bring me wildflowers and say, "These are for you, Mommy." Now she was sitting across from me, waiting for me to sign away the rest of my life. Ryan leaned closer, his voice low. "Let's not waste everyone's time. Sign it, Evelyn. Don't embarrass your daughter." The way he said my name, not Mom, but Evelyn, felt like a threat wrapped in politeness. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Those eyes, they were pure calculation. The teller nearby kept glancing in our direction, but no one said a word. In that moment, I realized something awful. You can be surrounded by people and still be completely invisible. The pen felt heavy in my hand. Every instinct in me screamed, "Don't do it." But years of conditioning whispered back, "Be nice. Don't make a scene." That's when the manager appeared. Mr. Harris, a man in his late 50s with graying hair and kind eyes. "Is everything all right here?" he asked, his tone polite but watchful. Ryan immediately smiled. "Yes, sir, just helping my mother-in-law with a transfer." Mr. Harris's gaze shifted to me. "Ma'am, are you comfortable with this transaction?" Before I could answer, Lena cut in. "She's fine. My mom just gets nervous with paperwork." I looked at Mr. Harris, I really looked at him, and something inside me broke. Tears blurred my vision. This was my chance. Maybe my only chance. When Lena turned her head to check something on the form, I grabbed the edge of a deposit slip and scribbled as fast as I could. "Help. I'm being forced." My hand shook as I slid it toward him, pretending to adjust the papers. He looked down, then up at me. For a split second, our eyes met, and in that second, I knew he understood. Without a word, he gave a tiny nod and walked away, his face calm and unreadable. Ryan frowned. "What's taking him so long?" I forced a smile. "Probably just checking something." Inside, I was praying. Please let him believe me. Minutes felt like hours. Lena drummed her nails on the table, clearly irritated. Ryan leaned back in his chair, his arm stretched casually along the backrest, but his hand was still gripping my shoulder, just enough to remind me he was in control. Then I noticed movement near the front desk. 2 security guards. They weren't rushing, but their eyes were locked on us. My breath caught in my throat. Mr. Harris returned, his calm mask still in place. "Mrs. Carter," he said, "I just need to review some details with you privately in my office before finalizing the transfer." Ryan straightened. "Why?" "Everything's in order. It's standard protocol for larger amounts," Mr. Harris replied evenly. "We do this for all clients." I could feel Ryan's grip tighten again. Lena smiled nervously. "That's not necessary. Mom's fine," but Mr. Harris didn't waver. He extended his hand toward me. "Please, ma'am. It will only take a few minutes." My heart hammered. This was it, my lifeline. If I stood up, I might finally escape. If I stayed seated, I was done. I stood. Ryan's hand fell from my arm, his smile flickering for the first time. "Mom," Lena hissed, "don't make this difficult." Mr. Harris gestured toward his office. I followed him, my knees trembling, the world spinning around me. When he closed the door behind us, I broke down completely. He handed me a box of tissues. "Take your time," he said gently. Then quietly, "Tell me what's going on," and I did. Everything poured out. Years of financial manipulation, guilt, and emotional blackmail. How I had paid for Lena's education, her house, her debts. How I had kept saying yes until there was nothing left of me. And how now her husband had physically hurt me when I tried to resist. Mr. Harris listened carefully, his expression calm but serious. When I finished, he said, "Mrs. Carter, what they're doing is called financial coercion. In some cases, it's even considered elder abuse. You don't have to sign anything. Elder abuse." The words hit me like thunder. I had thought I was being a good mother, loyal, generous, loving. But in reality, I had been a victim. What do I do now? I whispered. "First," he said firmly, "we cancel this transaction. Then we secure your account. And most importantly, we make sure you're safe." For the first time that day, I felt my lungs fill completely. I had been drowning for years, and now someone had finally pulled me to the surface. Saying no shouldn't feel like a battle. But when the people you love most have spent years twisting your kindness into weakness, that one word becomes a revolution. And on that day, in that bank, I finally said it for the first time. Mr. Harris sat across from me in his small, tidy office. The blinds were half closed, sunlight cutting thin lines across his desk. He had already canceled the transfer and placed a special alert on my account. No transactions without my physical presence and an extra verification code. When he finished typing, he looked up. "Mrs. Carter," he said, "before you go out there, you need to make a decision. Are you ready to say no, even if it means upsetting your daughter?" That question hit harder than anything else. Was I ready? I'd spent 69 years saying yes to keep the peace, to avoid conflict, to feel loved. If I stopped being that person, who would I even be? I thought of my husband, James, how he used to squeeze my hand and say, "Evelyn, you can't pour from an empty cup." I had ignored that advice all my life. But sitting there, with bruises forming on my arm and my daughter waiting to take everything from me, I knew it was time. "Yes," I whispered. "I'm ready," Mr. Harris smiled softly. "Good. Then let's do this together." We walked back toward the waiting area. Lena immediately stood up, her face tense. "Mom, what's taking so long? We've been sitting here forever." Ryan rose too, his smile back in place, the kind that hides a storm underneath. "What's this about, Mr. Harris?" he asked, his tone low but sharp. "We've already explained everything." Mr. Harris's calm expression didn't falter. "I just needed to confirm that Mrs. Carter fully understands her decision." He turned to me. "Would you like to proceed with the transfer?" The entire bank seemed to fall silent. Every sound, the chatter, the printers, the hum of the AC, faded into a dull background noise. I could feel their eyes on me. My daughter's fake smile, her husband's glare, the tension coiling between them like a live wire. I took a deep breath. "No," I said. "I'm not transferring anything." The words left my mouth like a thunderclap. For a moment, Lena didn't react, as if she couldn't process what she'd heard. Then her face changed. Shock, confusion, then anger. "Mom," she said in a trembling voice, "what are you talking about?" "We already discussed this." "No, you discussed it," I replied quietly. "I listened. And I've made my decision." Ryan took a step forward, his voice tightening. "Evelyn, be reasonable. This isn't about taking your money. It's about managing it for you." "I don't need you to manage anything," I said firmly. "It's my account, my money, my life." Mr. Harris subtly nodded to the two security guards nearby. They moved closer, not aggressively, but enough to make Ryan stop in his tracks. Lena's eyes filled with tears, not the real kind, but the practiced kind. "Mom," she pleaded, lowering her voice, "please don't do this." "You're making a scene. Think of Maya, think of your granddaughter," I almost faltered. That name and my sweet granddaughter had been used as a weapon so many times. But this time I didn't let it pierce me. "I am thinking of her," I said. "That's exactly why I'm stopping this now. I don't want her to grow up believing that love means manipulation." Lena blinked, stunned. "Manipulation? Mom, how can you say that?" "Because it's true," I said, my voice trembling but strong. "For years I've said yes to everything you asked for. College, the wedding, the house, the loans. I thought I was helping. But I wasn't. I was teaching you that you could take and take until there was nothing left." Ryan's mask cracked. His polite expression turned into a scowl. "This is ridiculous," he snapped. "You're confused." "We're trying to help you," Mr. Harris stepped in. "Sir, that's enough. Mrs. Carter has made her decision. Please respect that." Ryan clenched his jaw. For a moment, I thought he might explode, but the presence of the guards kept him still. He muttered under his breath, "You'll regret this." Lena's tears kept falling, but I could see the fury behind them. "Mom, I can't believe you'd do this to me." "After everything we've done for you," I laughed bitterly. "Everything you've done for me? Lena, I've spent my life taking care of you. I worked nights, gave up vacations, sold jewelry, pawned memories, all so you could have the life I never had. And this is how you thank me?" She looked away, unable to meet my eyes. Ryan whispered something to her, then straightened his suit. "Come on," he said. "We're done here." As they walked toward the door, Lena turned back one last time. "Fine, Mom, keep your money. But don't expect us to come running when you're old, broke, and alone." Her words sliced through me like glass. For a second, I felt the familiar pang of guilt. The old urge to fix things, to apologize, to make peace. But then I remembered what Mr. Harris had said. You can't pour from an empty cup. So I simply nodded. "That's okay. I'll manage." And for the first time in decades, I meant it. When they left, the silence was almost sacred. Mr. Harris sat beside me. "How do you feel?" I exhaled shakily. "Terrified, but free. Like I can finally breathe again," he smiled. "That's what starting over feels like. When you finally stand up to the people who've controlled you for years, you expect relief. But what comes first is silence and guilt. The kind that crawls into your chest and whispers, maybe you were wrong." That's what came after I said no for the first time. The automatic doors of the bank closed behind Lena and Ryan, leaving behind only the sound of the humming air conditioner and my own shaky breathing. For a long moment, I couldn't move. I sat there in the waiting area, my purse in my lap, my heart pounding like a drum. I had done something unthinkable, something I never believed I was capable of. I had told my daughter no. Mr. Harris sat beside me, his tone calm and kind. "You did the right thing, Mrs. Carter," he said softly. "It's never easy to stand up to family, especially when they've depended on you for so long." I nodded, but the words barely registered. My hands were still trembling. My legs felt like paper. I watched the glass doors close behind my daughter and her husband, two figures walking away from my life, taking with them years of guilt, fear, and manipulation. When I finally stood, I felt 10 years older, but lighter, like I had dropped a weight I'd been carrying for decades. That night, I sat alone in my living room. The house was quiet, too quiet. The silence was so thick I could hear the ticking of the clock echo through the walls. There were family photos everywhere. Lena's graduation picture, her wedding day, little Maya as a baby, wrapped in a pink blanket. I looked at those pictures and asked myself the same question over and over again. When did I lose myself? When did I stop being Evelyn Carter, the woman who loved painting, who baked for her neighbors, who laughed with her husband on the porch swing? When did I become just Lena's mom, the woman who could never say no? The guilt crept in fast, the old familiar guilt that had kept me obedient all my life. Maybe I overreacted. Maybe I should have given them something. Maybe I ruined my relationship with my daughter forever. I made tea just to keep my hands busy, but even the sound of the kettle whistling felt lonely. I missed my husband more than ever. James would have known what to say. He always did. The phone started ringing around 9 p.m. Lena's name flashed on the screen. For a moment, my heart jumped. Maybe she wanted to apologize. Maybe she'd realized how wrong she'd been. But I didn't answer. I wasn't ready. Not yet. The calls kept coming, one after another. Then the messages started. Lena, Mom, we need to talk. Lena, you're making a huge mistake. Lena, I can't believe you'd humiliate us like that in public. Lena, Maya keeps asking why Grandma is being so mean. That one broke me. Because even after everything, she still knew how to use my heart against me, through my granddaughter. I sat on the couch holding my phone, reading those messages, feeling every ounce of doubt claw its way back into me. Then another message came through. Lena, Mom, you've always been generous. This new behavior, it's not like you. Are you okay? Are you sick or confused? And there it was, the next phase of manipulation. When guilt stopped working, she turned to gaslighting. Maybe she thought if she made me doubt my sanity, I'd fall back in line. But I had already crossed a line I could never uncross. I had found my voice and I wasn't going to lose it again. For the next 2 days, I didn't answer her calls. I didn't reply to her texts. I didn't open the door when she came by and rang the bell for 15 straight minutes. I watched her through the window, standing there, her face twisted with anger and desperation. Ryan was beside her, pacing like a caged animal. And little Maya stood between them, holding a piece of paper in her hand. A drawing, probably for me. My heart ached. Every instinct screamed at me to open the door. But I remembered Mr. Harris's words. Fear and guilt are the strongest chains manipulators use. So I stayed still. I didn't move. I didn't give in. After a while, they left. The house went quiet again. And for the first time in a long time, I realized silence isn't always loneliness. Sometimes it's peace. Later that night, I got a call from my younger sister, Clara. "Evelyn, what happened?" she asked, her voice filled with concern. "Lena called me crying. She says you accused her and Ryan of trying to steal your money." "She didn't tell you that Ryan hurt my arm," I said quietly. "She didn't tell you that I had to write a note begging for help." Clara was silent for a moment. Then she sighed. "Oh, Evelyn, she's your daughter. Maybe you misunderstood. Families help each other out." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Families help each other," I said slowly. "They don't threaten or lie. They don't treat love like a bank account." Clara didn't reply. Maybe she couldn't understand, or maybe she wasn't ready to. After I hung up, I realized something important. Not everyone would understand my decision. And that was okay. I wasn't doing this for their approval. I was doing it for my survival. That night, as I climbed into bed, I whispered to myself, "You did the right thing." I said it again and again until I believed it. It didn't erase the pain. It didn't erase the guilt. But it was the first step toward something new. Something I hadn't felt in years. Freedom. You can block a number. You can close a door. But when the person knocking is your 8-year-old granddaughter, holding a drawing that says, "I love you," saying no feels impossible. That's what I faced the day Maya showed up at my house. Alone. It had been 4 days since the incident at the bank. 4 days since I'd said no to my daughter for the first time in my life. The phone had gone quiet. No more calls. No more messages. Just silence. I was starting to get used to it. The strange calm that comes when chaos finally leaves the room. That afternoon, I was watering the rose bushes in my backyard when I heard it. Ding dong. The doorbell. At first, I froze. Maybe Lena was back, ready for another round of guilt and tears. But when I looked through the window, my heart nearly stopped. It wasn't Lena, it was Maya, my little granddaughter. Standing on my porch in her school uniform, clutching her pink backpack and holding a folded piece of paper in her hand. I opened the door before I even thought about it. "Maya," I whispered. "What are you doing here, sweetheart?" She smiled up at me, the same gap-toothed smile that used to melt my heart. "Hi, Grandma," she said cheerfully. "Mommy said you're sad. So I came to make you happy." Her innocence hit me like a knife. That tiny voice, Garrett, so full of love, so unaware of the storm her parents had created. I knelt down to her level. "Oh, my love, I'm always happy to see you. But how did you get here? Did Mommy bring you?" She shook her head. "Uncle Jason dropped me off on his way to work. Mommy said it's okay because you miss me." I felt my stomach twist. Lena had sent her. Of course she had. Even after everything, she was still using her daughter as bait, as a weapon of guilt. "Can I come in?" Maya asked, holding up her drawing. "I made you something." I stepped aside. "Of course, baby. Come in." Inside, she sat on the couch like she'd done hundreds of times before. She unfolded her drawing. Bright colors, stick figures, and hearts. It was me, a giant version of Grandma with big arms and a big smile surrounded by flowers and sunshine. But there was something different this time. The grandma in the drawing had a tear on her face. "Why is Grandma sad?" I asked gently. Maya looked down. Because Mommy says you're confused. She says some bad men at the bank made you believe things that aren't true. I froze. This wasn't a casual visit. This was a script. Lena's script, spoken by an 8-year-old who didn't even understand what she was saying. Maya, sweetheart, I said softly. There were no bad men. The people at the bank were helping me. She frowned, clearly puzzled. But Mommy says they took your money. I smiled gently. No, honey. Grandma still has her money, and she's learning how to take care of it all by herself. Maya tilted her head. Why? Mommy said you don't like sharing anymore. Is that true? Her words were innocent, but they landed like stones. How do you explain boundaries to a child who's been taught that love equals giving? I took her tiny hands in mine. Maya, do you know why I love you? I asked. She thought for a moment. Because I'm your granddaughter? Yes, I said, smiling. But also because you're kind and funny and smart. You make me proud every single day. My love for you has nothing to do with money or gifts. I love you for who you are, not what you get from me. Do you understand? She nodded slowly, though I could see confusion behind her eyes. It wasn't her fault. She was too young to understand how deeply she'd been caught in her parents' web. Grandma, she said after a pause, you're not mad at me, right? I didn't do anything wrong? That question nearly broke me. I pulled her into my arms, hugging her tight. No, my love. You didn't do anything wrong. Grandma could never be mad at you. We stayed like that for a long time, just holding each other, her heartbeat small and steady against my chest. When I saw Lena's car pull up outside, my body went cold. She didn't even get out of the car. She just honked the horn, twice, sharp and impatient. Maya, I said gently, I think Mommy's here. Maya looked disappointed. Can I come again soon? Of course, I lied softly. Anytime. She ran out to the car, waving her drawing in the air. Lena didn't wave back. She just watched me from behind the tinted glass, her expression unreadable, her jaw tight. As they drove away, I stood at the doorway, clutching the handle until my knuckles turned white. That night, I sat on my bed holding Maya's drawing. The tear on Grandma's face stared back at me, and I realized something that hit harder than anything before. This, all of it, wasn't just about money. It was about what I had taught my daughter. And what she was now teaching hers. I had spent a lifetime proving my love with dollars and favors. And now my granddaughter was learning that same lie, that love always comes with a price tag. I pressed the drawing against my chest and whispered, "It ends with me." Sometimes the person who saves you isn't the one you've known your whole life. It's a stranger who shows up at your door, holding a piece of your past you didn't even know you'd lost. That's how I met Caroline, the young woman who reminded me that family can still mean hope. It had been a week since Maya's visit, a week of quiet mornings, long walks, and the heavy kind of peace that follows a storm. I was sitting on the porch, trimming the yellow leaves off my plants when the doorbell rang again. My heart jumped. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I looked through the peephole, I saw a young woman standing there. Tall, mid-20s maybe, with her hair pulled back in a ponytail and a nervous smile on her face. She looked familiar somehow, though I couldn't place her. I opened the door just enough to speak. "Yes, can I help you?" The woman smiled politely. "Mrs. Carter? My name's Caroline. I'm your great-niece, Arthur's daughter. I know this is a surprise, but I've been wanting to meet you. Arthur." That name took me back decades, my sister Clara's son. I hadn't seen him since he was a teenager. If this was his daughter, that made her family. But distant. I hesitated, unsure whether to invite her in. Then I noticed she was holding a small notebook in her hands. Old, worn, the cover faded. "This belonged to your husband," she said softly. "James Carter. I think it's his journal." My breath caught in my throat. James's journal. I hadn't seen it since he passed. I thought I'd lost it forever. I opened the door wider. "Please come in." We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where I'd once shared dinners with my husband and, later, countless conversations with Lena. Now, across from me sat this young woman, someone who carried my family's blood but not its burdens. There was something calm, grounding about her presence. She handed me the journal. "My dad found this when he was clearing out some boxes from Aunt Clara's attic. He thought you might want it." I ran my fingers over the cover, the small cracks in the leather, the faint smell of ink and old paper. James had used this journal to write down little life lessons, poems, memories from his travels. It was like having a piece of him back. "Thank you," I said, my voice trembling. "You don't know how much this means to me." Caroline smiled softly. "Actually, I might. My dad told me a bit about what's been going on. About Lena. And the bank." My stomach tightened. "Clara told him?" She nodded. "He was really worried about you. I offered to come because, well, I've been through something similar. That caught my attention." "Similar? With your parents?" Caroline nodded, her eyes distant for a moment. "My mom had a gambling problem after the divorce. She used to say she just needed a little help to get back on her feet. But it was never just a little. She took my college fund, borrowed money in my name, even forged my signature once." I felt a chill run through me. "How did you handle it?" She exhaled slowly. "At first I didn't. I kept helping. I felt guilty every time I said no. But eventually I realized she wasn't asking for love. She was asking for survival. And she wanted it at my expense." Her words echoed deep inside me, the same realization I had faced too late. "So what did you do?" "I stopped," she said simply. "I stopped giving her money, and I told her that if she wanted me in her life, it had to be without lies and manipulation." It was the hardest thing I've ever done, but also the most freeing. I studied her for a long moment. This young woman who had learned in her 20s what had taken me nearly 70 years to understand. "You're very brave," I said quietly. She shook her head. "No, just tired of being afraid. And now I try to help others going through the same thing." There's actually a support group that meets every Tuesday at the downtown library for people dealing with financial or emotional abuse from family members. You might find it helpful. "Support group?" I repeated, almost laughing. "I've never been to one of those." Caroline smiled. "Neither had I. I thought I didn't belong there, that my problem wasn't as bad as everyone else's. But once I started talking, I realized how much I needed to be heard." Something in her tone, gentle but firm, made me listen. She wasn't just offering sympathy. She was offering a way forward. "Will they understand someone my age?" I asked. She chuckled. "You'd be surprised how many people your age go through this, Mrs. Carter. Financial abuse doesn't care about age, or titles, or how kind you are. It just takes." Her words landed like truth I had always known but never said aloud. I glanced down at James's journal, resting on the table between us. On the first page, in his neat handwriting, were 4 words. "Don't give love away." I felt tears prick my eyes. "Maybe it's time I learn how to keep some of it for myself," I said. Caroline reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "That's the spirit," she said. "And please, call me Caroline. Not stranger, not great niece. Just Caroline." For the first time in a long while, I smiled without forcing it. A stranger had walked into my home. But when she left that afternoon, it felt like she'd handed me something priceless. Not just James's journal, but hope. It's strange sitting in a room full of strangers and realizing they've lived your life. Different faces, different stories, but the same pain. That's what I felt the night I finally walked into the support group. And it was the night I stopped feeling alone. The library smelled like old paper and rain. It was a Tuesday evening, quiet, dim, the kind of peaceful silence that made you hear your own heartbeat. I almost didn't go inside. Part of me still felt embarrassed. What was I doing there? I wasn't the kind of person who needed a support group. I was a mother, a grandmother, a widow. I'd handled everything life had thrown at me. Or at least I thought I had. But Caroline's words echoed in my mind. "You'd be surprised how many people your age go through this." So, I took a deep breath and pushed open the door. The meeting room was small but warm. 12 chairs arranged in a circle, a pot of coffee on a side table, and a box of tissues in the center. About 10 people were already there, men and women of all ages, some around my age, others younger. A woman with curly gray hair smiled when I entered. "Welcome," she said softly. "You must be Evelyn. I'm Sandra, the group facilitator. We're really glad you came." Her calm tone made it easier to sit down. I chose a chair near the corner, hoping to blend in, Sandra began. Tonight, we're going to talk about boundaries and what happens when the people we love cross them. You don't have to share unless you want to. Just being here is enough. One by one, people began to speak. A man in his 60s with tired eyes said, "My son keeps asking for loans. I've paid his rent, his car, even his wedding. When I say no, he tells me I don't love him." A woman beside him nodded. "My sister forged my signature to get a credit card. When I confronted her, she said I was selfish for caring more about money than family." Their stories spilled out, raw, painful, familiar. Every word felt like a mirror reflecting my own life. The guilt, the manipulation, the endless cycle of giving and being blamed when you stop. By the time it was my turn, my hands were shaking. Sandra looked at me gently. "Would you like to share, Evelyn?" I hesitated, then took a deep breath. My daughter tried to take everything I had, my savings, my pension, even my peace. My voice cracked, but I kept going. I used to think I was just being a good mother. That saying yes meant love. But now I realize I wasn't helping her. I was teaching her how to hurt me. The room was silent. Not judgmental, just understanding. For the first time, I didn't have to explain or defend myself. Everyone simply got it. Sandra nodded. "That's incredibly brave, Evelyn. Recognizing that pattern is the first step toward breaking it." Another woman, maybe in her 70s, leaned forward. "I know how that feels," she said. "My daughter stole $100,000 from me over 10 years. The day I finally said no, she called me a monster. I thought I'd die from guilt. But I didn't, I lived. And now I'm finally free." Her words hit me like sunlight through clouds. I wasn't weak. I wasn't crazy. I was one of many, part of a quiet army of givers learning to take their lives back. After the meeting ended, Sandra handed me a pamphlet. "Here's some information on financial boundaries and legal protections for seniors," she said. "And this," she handed me a small card, "is my number. If your daughter or son-in-law tries to contact you in a threatening way again, call me." "We have resources." I tucked the card into my purse. Something about having it, a simple piece of paper, made me feel safer. Like I finally had a shield, however small. As I gathered my things, the woman who'd spoken earlier, her name was Eleanor, came over and touched my arm. "Would you like to get coffee next week?" she asked with a kind smile. "It helps talking outside these walls," I smiled back. "I'd like that." And I meant it. On the bus ride home, I looked out the window at the dark streets passing by. For years, I had defined myself by how much I gave to others. But tonight, I had met people who were teaching me something new: how to give to myself. When I got home, I opened James's journal again. On a random page, I found a quote he'd written years ago. "Courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, 'Try again tomorrow.'" I closed the book and whispered back, "I will." That night, I slept peacefully for the first time in months. No nightmares, no guilt. Just quiet, because for the first time since the day I said no, I didn't feel like a terrible mother. I felt like a survivor. It's one thing to say no in person, but it's harder when their voice follows you, through every phone call, every message, every whisper of guilt. That's how it started again. Not with a knock, but with the messages. It had been 3 weeks since I joined the support group. For the first time in years, I felt steady, almost peaceful. I was walking every morning, cooking for myself, even painting again. I'd started a small landscape full of light and open fields, a reminder that there was still beauty waiting for me beyond the pain. Then one evening, the phone rang. The screen showed a number I didn't recognize. At first, I ignored it, but it rang again and again, until I finally gave in and answered. "Mom?" Lena's voice. Just one word, and all the calm I'd built in the last few weeks shattered like glass. I froze. "Lena, what do you want?" She sighed, her voice breaking just enough to sound sincere. "Mom, I just want to talk. Please don't hang up." "I don't think that's a good idea," I said softly. "It's never just talking with you." There was silence for a few seconds, then, "Maya misses you. She's been asking why her grandma doesn't call anymore. She cried last night. That ache returned, the familiar guilt that always came with my granddaughter's name. She knew exactly where to strike. I almost replied but stopped myself. I had learned something in therapy. Manipulation often wears the mask of love. Tell her I love her, I said carefully. But right now I need space. Space? Lena repeated, her voice rising. Mom, you've changed. You're pushing everyone away. That man at the bank, he filled your head with lies. You think everyone's out to get you. He saved me, I said firmly. He saw what you and Ryan were doing. Her tone hardened instantly. Do you even hear yourself? You're 69 years old, Mom. You're confused. You don't remember things clearly. I'm worried about you. And there it was. The next weapon. Doubt gaslighting. Good night. Lena, I said and hung up, but she wasn't done. Over the next few days, the messages started. Lena, Mom, please answer. Lena, I just want to fix this. Lena, I talked to Ryan. He feels terrible about what happened. Lena, you're overreacting. Lena, I think you might need help. You've been forgetful lately. Each message felt like a stone thrown at my window. Small, relentless, impossible to ignore. I deleted them all, but she kept sending more. Then came the voicemails. The first one started sweet, almost gentle. Mom, Maya misses you so much. She's been drawing pictures for you every day. Please call us. We just want to be a family again. The second came 2 days later, colder. Mom, it's not right what you're doing. We're your family. You can't just cut us off like this. By the third message, the sweetness was gone completely. You're being manipulated, Mom. Everyone thinks you're losing your mind. Maybe we should talk to a lawyer about your finances before you do something stupid. That one made my knees buckle. Because I realized she wasn't just trying to guilt me anymore. She was threatening me. I called Sandra, the support group facilitator, and told her everything. She listened patiently, then said something I'll never forget. Evelyn, abusers don't stop because you set a boundary. They test it. They push against it to see if it'll break. Every time you don't answer, you're proving that it won't. But it hurts, I whispered. She's my daughter. I know, Sandra said softly. And that's what makes it so hard. But remember what you told us. You're not losing your daughter. You're losing the version of her that controlled you. Her words sank deep. I hadn't thought of it like that. Maybe Lena wasn't gone forever, but this version of her, the one driven by greed and manipulation, had to be. That night, I sat in bed listening to the rain tapping against the window. For years, I had believed love meant endurance, that no matter what your children did, you had to forgive them. But now I understood something else. Love doesn't mean letting people hurt you. Sometimes love means letting them go. I turned my phone off and set it face down on the nightstand. Then I reached for James's journal, my constant reminder of strength. I opened it to a random page. It read, "Kindness without boundaries becomes a cage." I stared at those words until they blurred through my tears. Because for the first time, I realized I had built that cage myself. And now, I was the only one who could unlock it. The next morning, I went to the bank and asked Mr. Harris to add extra security to my account. No phone transfers, no online access, no family permissions. He smiled approvingly. I'm proud of you, Mrs. Carter. It takes courage to protect yourself. I nodded. It took me a lifetime to learn that courage and kindness aren't the same thing. When I walked out into the sunlight that morning, I felt lighter again. Not because the messages had stopped, but because they no longer owned me. You can ignore the calls. You can delete the messages. But when the voice on the other end of the line is your 8-year-old granddaughter asking for help, that's when the real test begins. Because this time, the manipulation came with innocence. It happened on a quiet Saturday morning. I was making breakfast, eggs, toast, and a little jam, when the phone rang again. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. But something inside me said I should. Hello? I said cautiously. Grandma? The voice was small, soft, familiar. It was Maya. For a moment, I forgot to breathe. Maya, sweetheart. How are you, my love? I'm okay, she said. Mommy borrowed a phone from work because you don't answer ours anymore. My stomach tightened. Of course, Lena had found a new way in. Maya, I said gently. It's so good to hear your voice. How's school? It's good, she said quickly, but then her tone changed. Quieter, uncertain. Grandma, why don't you call us anymore? Did I do something wrong? That question, it pierced right through me. The guilt came rushing back, thick and suffocating. No, my love, I said softly. You didn't do anything wrong. Grandma loves you so much, she paused. Then why are you mad at Mommy? I felt my throat tighten. This wasn't Maya talking, not really. These were Lena's words spoken through her. I'm not mad at anyone, I said. But right now, Grandma and Mommy need some space to figure things out. There was silence on the line. Then Maya whispered, Mommy said you don't want to help us anymore. She said you don't care. I closed my eyes. There it was, the dagger. The perfect lie. Maya, listen to me, I said carefully. That's not true. I care very much. But grown-ups sometimes have problems that kids can't fix. And sometimes the best thing we can do is love each other from a distance for a while. She didn't respond right away. Then her voice softened even more. Grandma, my ballet recital is next month. I wanted to ask you something. I felt it before she said it. That quiet tremor in her voice, the setup before the ask. What is it, sweetheart? Mommy said I can't go unless we buy the new costume. It's $200. Can you please help me, Grandma? Please? I froze. It wasn't Maya's fault. She was just repeating what she'd been told. But Lena, she had done it again. She'd sent her own child to do her dirty work. Tears stung my eyes. How do you say no to a child who doesn't understand the manipulation behind her words? Maya, I said gently, can you do me a favor and give the phone to your mom? There was shuffling on the other end, and then, Hello, Mom, Lena's voice. Cool, controlled, triumphant. So you'll talk to me if Maya calls. Good to know. My voice trembled, but not with fear, with anger. Lena, how could you use your daughter like that? Oh, don't be dramatic, she replied. She wanted to call you. She misses you. And she really wants to go to that recital. Then you find a way to pay for it, I said sharply. You and Ryan, you're her parents. Mom, don't do this, she snapped. It's just $200. You have more than enough. Why are you being so selfish? That word, selfish, hit me like a slap. The same word she'd used for years to guilt me. And for years it had worked. But not this time, selfish. I repeated. Lena, I've spent my entire life giving to you. I paid for your college, your wedding, your house. I gave until there was nothing left. Saying no now isn't selfish. It's survival. She went silent for a few seconds, then lowered her voice. You know, Mom, when you're old and sick and you can't handle things anymore, don't expect us to be there. Because we won't. Her words were cold, calculated. But they didn't have the same power they used to. I took a deep breath and said, That's fine, Lena. Because for the first time in my life, I'm learning to take care of myself. There was a long pause, then a click. The line went dead. I stood there for a long time, staring at the silent phone in my hand. The tears came, slow and quiet, not because of the threat, not even because of the manipulation, but because of what I'd finally understood. My daughter didn't know how to love without taking. And I was the one who had taught her that. I sat down at the kitchen table, the same one where I'd once written grocery lists and signed tuition checks, and whispered to the empty room, It ends with me. This pattern ends with me. That evening, I called Caroline. When she answered, I didn't even say hello. I just said, She used Maya this time. Caroline sighed softly. I'm sorry, Evelyn, but you handled it perfectly. Every time you hold that boundary, you're teaching both of them something new, that your love doesn't have to come with money. Her words calmed me. I realized that even though I was standing alone, I wasn't lonely. Because for the first time, I had people who understood. People who wanted nothing from me except my well-being. When you can't speak to someone you love, you write. You pour the words you can't say into pages that might never be read. And sometimes, that's enough. That's how I began writing letters to my granddaughter, Maya. The house was still that evening, wrapped in the soft hush of twilight. I sat by the window with a cup of tea and a notebook I'd bought years ago but never used. Cream-colored pages, a floral cover, still untouched. I opened it and stared at the first blank page. Then slowly, I began to write. Dear Maya, I don't know when you'll read this or if you ever will. Right now, you're too young to understand what's happening between your mother and me. But one day, when you're older, I hope these words will help you see the truth. Not the angry version your mom tells, but the real one. The one filled with love, not lies. I want you to know something very important. None of this is your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. And even when you don't hear from me, even when I seem far away, I am thinking of you every single day. Love, Grandma. When I finished that first letter, I sat in silence for a long time. The air felt lighter, like I'd just released something heavy from my chest. So I wrote another. And another. Every night that week, I wrote one letter, each a small piece of my heart sealed inside paper. Sometimes I wrote about memories. The way she used to run barefoot through the garden chasing butterflies. How her laughter used to fill the house like sunlight. How she'd say, Grandma, I made you a picture. And I'd tape it to the fridge as if it were priceless art. Other nights, I wrote about lessons. The kind I wished someone had taught me when I was her age. Dear Maya, if anyone ever tells you that love means giving everything you have, don't believe them. Real love doesn't ask you to empty yourself. It helps you grow, not shrink. And if someone makes you feel guilty for saying no, that's not love. That's control love, Grandma. The more I wrote, the more I began to see myself in those pages. Not as the weak, obedient woman I used to be, but as someone who was finally learning how to heal. Each letter became a promise, to her and to me. By the end of the month, I had written 12 letters. I placed them all in a wooden box that once held my husband's old tools, wrapped them in ribbon, and locked the box away in my dresser. One day, I thought when she's old enough, maybe 16, maybe 18, I'll give them to her. Or maybe she'll find them herself. And when she does, she'll finally know that I never stopped loving her. I just stopped letting her mother use that love against me. One afternoon, while organizing my kitchen, I found a photograph tucked between recipe books, Lena holding Maya on her first birthday, both of them smiling, frosting smeared on Maya's cheeks. For a moment, my heart ached again, because for all the pain and betrayal, there was still a part of me that missed my daughter. Not the woman she'd become, but the little girl she used to be. The one who used to dance in the living room, laughing until she fell over. I placed the photo inside the box with the letters. It didn't feel like weakness this time. It felt like closure. That evening, I called Caroline. I started writing letters to Maya, I told her. She smiled through the phone. I could hear it in her voice. That's beautiful, Evelyn. It's a way to keep the love alive without reopening the wounds. I don't know if she'll ever read them, I said. Lena might never let her. Maybe not, Caroline replied. But those letters aren't just for Maya, they're for you too. They're proof that your love can exist without being taken advantage of. Her words stayed with me long after we hung up. I realized something powerful that night. For so many years, my love had been loud. It shouted in sacrifices and drowned in guilt. But now it had become quiet, stronger, wiser. It didn't need to be seen to be real. Before going to bed, I opened my husband's old journal one more time. On one of the last pages, in his neat handwriting, were the words, "Sometimes the greatest act of love is letting someone find their own way, even if it means walking alone for a while." I closed the journal, tears in my eyes but peace in my heart. Because for the first time in decades, I wasn't living through my daughter's choices. I was living for my own. When you stop living for others, the world feels quieter. At first, that silence hurts, but eventually it starts to sound like peace. That's how it felt. Until the day the phone rang again. And this time, it wasn't my daughter. 6 months had passed since I started writing letters to Maya. 6 months since I'd heard Lena's voice. And in those months, something inside me had changed. My mornings were slow and soft. Coffee on the porch, birdsong filling the air. I'd started volunteering at a women's center, teaching older women how to recognize signs of financial abuse. It gave my pain a purpose. For the first time in years, I wasn't someone's victim. I was someone's example. Every Tuesday, I still went to the support group. Eleanor had become one of my closest friends. We laughed more than we cried now, and every time someone new joined, I saw a reflection of the scared woman I used to be, the one who thought saying no made her heartless. And I'd tell them the same thing Sandra once told me. You're not selfish. You're healing. My finances were stable again. Without Lena and Ryan draining me, I had more than enough. I even began saving, not for anyone else this time, but for myself. A little freedom fund, as I like to call it. Money for new hobbies, trips, maybe even a small art studio one day. I was happy, or at least learning how to be. Then, one evening in late spring, the phone rang. An unfamiliar number flashed on the screen. Normally, I wouldn't answer. But something, intuition maybe, has made me pick up. Mrs. Carter? The voice was male, professional. This is Dr. Patel from the Riverside Medical Center. I'm calling about your daughter, Lena. My heart dropped. What happened? I asked, gripping the counter. Is she okay? She's fine, he said quickly. But she was in a minor car accident earlier today. Nothing life-threatening, just a few bruises. She asked that we contact you. I closed my eyes, 1,000 feelings rushing at once. Worry, anger, confusion, love. Even after everything, she still had the power to shake me. Thank you, doctor, I said finally. Please tell her I'm glad she's safe. She's still here if you'd like to speak with her. For a moment, I didn't know what to say. Every boundary I'd built trembled. Every wall I'd put up cracked. But I took a slow breath and said, yes, put her on. Mom? Her voice was soft, weaker than I remembered. And though part of me wanted to harden, another part couldn't help but soften. Lena, I said quietly. The doctor said you're okay? Yeah, she whispered. It's not bad. Just scary. The car's a mess, though. I could almost picture her, sitting on a hospital bed, pale, shaken, trying to sound composed. And for a few seconds, we were just mother and daughter again, stripped of all the history between us. Then came the silence. The heavy kind. The one that always came before the ask. But this time it didn't come. Instead, she said, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. But when I thought I might die, I realized something. I've treated you terribly, Mom. Her voice broke. And something inside me, that old mother's instinct, stirred painfully. Was it real this time? Or just another act? I hurt you, she continued. And I let Ryan hurt you too. You didn't deserve any of it. I sat down at the kitchen table, gripping the edge to steady myself. Lena? I whispered, but I didn't know what else to say. I don't expect you to forgive me, she said. I just wanted you to know. I'm sorry. Her words hung in the air, trembling like fragile glass. After all the lies, the manipulation, the anger, part of me wanted to believe her. Part of me wanted to run to that hospital and hold her like the little girl she used to be. But the stronger part of me, the one I had spent months rebuilding, stayed calm. I appreciate that, I said softly. And I hope you take this second chance life just gave you to change things. I'm trying, she said. I really am. I want to be better for Maya. That name, Maya, was like a light in the darkness. How is she? I asked. She's good, Lena said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. She's growing fast. She talks about you all the time. I felt a tear slip down my cheek. Tell her Grandma loves her, always. I will, she said quietly. Maybe one day we can all talk again? I hesitated. Not because I didn't want to, but because I finally understood what healthy love required. Patience, boundaries, trust rebuilt one step at a time. Maybe, I said. But not today. Today you focus on getting better. Okay, she whispered. Thank you, Mom. When the call ended, I sat there in silence, staring at my reflection in the dark window. For years, I'd waited for those words, I'm sorry. But now that I had them, I realized something unexpected. I didn't need them to heal. I had already forgiven her in my heart. Not for her, but for me. That night, I went to my dresser and took out the wooden box of letters to Maya. I added one more. Dear Maya, your mother called today. She's safe. Maybe someday you'll all understand what happened between us. And maybe you'll even forgive her before I do. But I want you to know something. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing peace over pain. And that's what I've chosen. Love always, Grandma. Second chances don't come wrapped in apologies. They come quietly, in small moments, in changed voices, in the way someone says I'm trying. That's how it started again between my daughter and me. Not with trust, but with possibility. 2 months had passed since that phone call from the hospital, since Lena's apology, since I'd heard the words I thought I'd never hear. I'm sorry, Mom. At first, I didn't know what to do with them. Apologies, I'd learned, don't erase scars. They're like seeds. They only grow into something new if both people take care of them. And I wasn't sure Lena was ready to take care of anything yet. Still, something inside me had softened. Maybe it was age. Maybe it was time. Or maybe it was that tiny, fragile thing I'd buried under years of pain. Hope. One Sunday morning, I got a letter in the mail. It wasn't from a company or a friend. It was handwritten, the ink slightly smudged. When I saw the name on the envelope, my heart skipped. Lena Carter. For a moment, I just stared at it. Then carefully I opened it. Dear Mom, I don't know if you'll even read this, but I wanted to try. I've started therapy. Real therapy. My counselor says I need to face the things I've done instead of hiding behind excuses. She says I used guilt as control. That I learned it from you, but twisted it into something worse. I'm trying to be better. I want to rebuild things. Not just for me, but for Maya too. Love, Lena. Tears blurred the page before I even finished reading. For years, I had imagined what an apology might sound like from her, and it had never sounded like this. This wasn't manipulation. It wasn't begging. It was honest, raw, human. I folded the letter carefully and placed it inside my journal, next to James's old notes, a reminder that even the hardest hearts can bend when they're ready. 2 weeks later, my phone rang again. This time it was Caroline. Evelyn, you sound different, she said, her voice warm. I am, I admitted. Lena wrote to me. Caroline paused, thoughtful. And how does that make you feel? Scared, I said truthfully. Hopeful, but scared. I don't want to fall back into old patterns. That's good, she said. It means you're aware. Forgiveness doesn't mean going back to how things were. It means building something new, with rules this time. Rules, boundaries, the two things I'd never had before. A few days later, I sent Lena a letter of my own. Dear Lena, I read your note. I'm proud of you for getting help. I forgive you. Not because I've forgotten, but because I don't want to live in anger anymore. But forgiveness doesn't mean access. We'll rebuild this slowly, step by step. If you truly want a relationship again, it has to be one built on honesty and respect. Start by writing to me once a month. Tell me about your therapy, about Maya, about your life. No money, no favors. No guilt, just words. If you can do that, maybe we can see each other again someday. Love, Mom, it felt both terrifying and freeing to send it. For once I was setting the terms, not her. Weeks turned into months. And true to her word, Lena wrote every month. Her letters were shorter at first, updates about work, therapy, and Maya's school. But over time, they became deeper, more reflective. She didn't just talk about her life. She talked about her guilt. Mom, I see now how I used you. I thought your money was proof of love. I thought taking was how I kept you close. But now I understand I was breaking you. The words hurt. But they also healed. Because for the first time, my daughter was finally seeing the truth. Then one afternoon, I got another envelope. But this one wasn't from Lena. It was written in careful, uneven handwriting, to Grandma from Maya. I opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a drawing, 2 women sitting at a table, smiling. And underneath it, in crooked letters, I love you, Grandma. Mommy says maybe we can visit soon. My tears came instantly. Not from sadness this time, but from gratitude. Because for the first time, I saw that my healing had started to reach the next generation. Maya would grow up seeing her mother change. She would see what real accountability looked like. And maybe, just maybe, she'd grow up to love without fear. That night, I lit a candle and placed it beside James's photo on the mantel. I think she's really trying, I whispered. If he could hear me, I knew he'd smile. He always believed Lena would find her way back, even when I didn't. And maybe, after all this time, she finally was. Dear Maya, if you ever read this, I want you to know, your mother and I both learned something important. Love can't be bought. It can't be forced. It can only grow when there's respect. That's what second chances are. Not do-overs, but new beginnings. And ours has just begun. Love always, Grandma. They say life doesn't give you perfect endings, only full circles. Sometimes the people who once broke you are the same ones who help you heal. If you've learned how to stand strong. That's what I learned the day I saw my daughter again. It had been nearly 2 years since the day at the bank. 2 years since I'd said no for the first time in my life. 2 years since Lena's apology had arrived in the mail. And today, for the first time since then, she was coming to see me. I had spent the morning cleaning, even though my little house was already spotless. I didn't know why. Nerves, maybe. I'd even baked banana bread, the same kind she loved when she was a child. It wasn't for her approval. It was for me. A symbol that this time I was welcoming her as an equal, not as someone who owed her anything. At exactly 2 in the afternoon, there was a knock on the door. My heart skipped. When I opened it, I saw her, standing there with her hands folded in front of her. Older, thinner, but calmer. Behind her, holding a small bouquet of flowers, was Maya. For a moment, we all just stood there, silent. The same air between us that once carried lies now carried something else. Truth. "Hi, Mom," Lena said softly. "You look..." "Good," I smiled faintly. "So do you." Maya rushed forward before her mother could stop her. "Grandma!" she cried, throwing her arms around me. Her hug was tighter than I remembered, filled with a kind of pure love that made every tear I'd ever shed worth it. "I missed you," she whispered. "I missed you too." "Sweetheart," I said, my voice shaking. When we finally pulled apart, I looked at Lena. "Would you both like to come in?" She nodded. "If it's okay?" "It's okay," I said. "Come in." The 3 of us sat at the table. The same one where I'd once written those letters to Maya. The same one where I had cried alone, learning how to be strong. Now it was filled with the smell of banana bread and blooming flowers. Lena looked around quietly. "It's nice here," she said. "Peaceful." "It is," I replied. "I built it that way." She nodded slowly, her eyes glistening. "I didn't come here to ask for anything, Mom. I just wanted to see you, to show you I've kept my word." I studied her face. It was softer now, not tight with anger or entitlement. She looked like the Lena I'd once known, the one who laughed easily and dreamed big. "How's therapy?" I asked gently. She smiled faintly. "Hard, but good. I'm learning a lot. About control. And guilt. About how I hurt you. And why." I reached across the table and took her hand. It was the first time we'd touched in years. "It takes courage to face yourself," I said. "I'm proud of you." Her eyes filled. "You are?" "Yes," I said. "I always was. I just couldn't keep saving you while you destroyed me." That sentence hung in the air, heavy but honest. And for the first time, Lena didn't flinch from it. "I know," she said quietly, "and I don't want you to anymore. I just want to be your daughter again, not your burden." I smiled, tears slipping down my cheeks. "I think we can start there." Maya, who had been quietly coloring beside us, looked up. "Grandma, Mommy said we can visit you sometimes." "Can we really?" I turned to her and smiled. "Yes, sweetheart. You can come whenever you want. But there are rules, grown-up rules." Her eyes widened. "Rules?" "Just one," I said, glancing at Lena. "We always speak kindly. We always tell the truth. And we never, ever use love to hurt each other." Lena nodded. "That's fair." Maya grinned. "Then I like the rules." The tension broke into soft laughter, awkward at first, but real. The kind that fills the air with warmth instead of fear. Later that afternoon, after they'd gone, I stood by the window watching them walk to their car. Maya skipped ahead, waving a flower she'd picked from my garden. Lena followed, glancing back once, and when our eyes met, she smiled. Not the smile of manipulation. Not the mask she used to wear. A real smile. Fragile, but honest. When their car disappeared down the road, I sat back at the table, the half-eaten banana bread still warm on the plate. I opened my journal, the same one where I'd written my letters to Maya, and began to write one last entry. Dear James, it's been 2 years since that terrible day in the bank. If you could see us now, I think you'd be proud. Your daughter is healing. Your granddaughter is learning. And me, well, I'm finally free from guilt, free from fear, free from the need to be loved at any cost. You always said I gave too much. You were right. But maybe that's what had to happen for me to learn the most important lesson of all. That love isn't proven through sacrifice. It's proven through balance. Today our family is smaller, quieter, but it's finally whole. With love, Evelyn. When I finished writing, I closed the journal and stepped outside. The sun was setting, painting the sky gold. I could hear children playing in the distance, their laughter echoing faintly. For a long time, I just stood there, breathing in the peace I had fought so hard to earn. I thought of all the women like me, the givers, the forgivers, the mothers who loved too deeply and lost themselves along the way. And I whispered into the wind, you can start over. No matter how old you are, no matter how much you've lost, it's never too late to choose yourself. The breeze carried the words away, and for the first time in my life, I felt complete.